I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about emotion coaching because it's related to family processes between parents and kids, and it's also one of my favorite constructs that I found most useful as a parent and that I've shared with other parents. So emotion coaching, as I understand it, originated with John Gottman's research in the 1990s. And Gottman is most known in our field for his research on marriage, but he also researched and wrote a book about raising emotionally intelligent kids and kind of developed this construct of emotion coaching. And so you can watch a little video of he and his wife talking about emotion coaching. You can also watch a funny video about how parents manage or mismanage kids' emotion. And then we'll go over kind of the 3 ways that Gottman says parents fail to teach emotional intelligence, and then we'll get more into emotion coaching. Parents who have a more dismissing style are generally just kind of uncomfortable with emotion, especially negative emotion. And so they're generally going to try to distract, ignore, fix, shut down, or minimize. And so kids learn that feelings aren't okay. They don't have opportunities to learn to regulate their emotion, and they're more likely to feel like there's something wrong with them when they're having a strong emotion, especially a strong negative emotion. So the disapproving style is similar to dismissing, but it's more negative, as its name implies. It's more judgmental and critical of emotional expressions. This belief that emotions, whether, exuberance or anger, really need to be controlled, that a child might be getting angry to kind of get what they want. That you might be able to tolerate it a little bit, but we shouldn't stay in this state, and kind of really punishing kids for emotional expression. So before my mom went back to school to become a therapist, my parents had more of this disapproving style, and I would hear things like, wipe that look off your face, or if you don't quit your crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And so I, as a child, basically felt like I was just a cage of rage where I had nowhere to go with this pretty intense emotion. So the effects on a child are pretty similar to the dismissing style, with maybe kind of that, stronger sense that something's wrong with you because of these feelings. The laissez-faire style is basically accepting, so not dismissing or disapproving or punishing, but not really coaching kids into what to do about these emotions. And, just this idea of, well, you just kind of got to ride it out. And so kids, again, miss out on opportunities to regulate their emotions, and also might struggle then with peer relationships. So here's some other tips from Gottman about being an emotion coach: that you recognize that kids' emotions are a time for connection and for kind of naming and learning about emotion. That you can kind of hang in there with difficult emotions, and none of us love it, but you can kind of hang in there, right? That you see the value in your own emotions as well as your kids' emotions, that you can get beyond just happy, sad, mad to more subtle emotions like disappointed, embarrassed, jealous, ashamed, right? And that you take emotions seriously. So Gottman did a fair amount of longitudinal research on parents in their various emotion coaching styles or lack thereof. And what he found is that kids whose parents emotion coach generally are better at regulating their own emotions, but also have things like it not only influences your social and emotional development, right? Better emotional regulation, better peer relations, fewer behavioral problems, less aggression, less depression following a divorce, but it also actually is related to physical health and also academic performance. A more recent study by Haverhurst of following in a randomized controlled trial with a couple hundred parents and then kids ages 4 to 5. Parents were randomized to an emotion coaching intervention that consisted of a 6-session parenting program. And what they found is that parents in the intervention condition reported significant increases in their ability to emotion coach and significant reductions in emotion dismissing with their kids. And they also reported behavior improvements in their kids. Of those kids who had basically clinical levels of behavioral difficulties, getting into trouble at school or causing kind of serious disruption at home, more than half of the children no longer had clinical levels, post-program. Okay, so this is really the heart of emotion coaching, these 5 steps, and I'm going to talk them through with you. And I think of these steps, when I'm interacting with my kids. So the first one is just becoming aware of a child's emotion. So sometimes this is really obvious because they're having a meltdown, or they're crying, or they're, super happy, or they're talking about how they feel. But other times, whether because they're young and they can't verbalize it, or they're older and they're not verbalizing it, you have to kind of be aware that emotion is happening. So sometimes your kids will come in the door from playing with a friend and something about their face just looks like, something's not right, or they're upset. So tuning in to be able to say, hey, you look like maybe something's bothering you. What's going on? The second one is recognizing emotion as opportunity for connection and teaching. And this all sounds like, oh, duh, of course I would do that, but there's so many moments as a parent where you're overstimulated, overwhelmed, rushing, that it's hard, triggered, mad yourself, they're mad at you. It's hard sometimes to see these as opportunities, right? You're in the middle of your older child's birthday party, which you've been, working on for days, and it's an exhausting day trying to orchestrate, 10 7-year-olds, and your younger child is melting down and being like, it's not fair, he's getting all the presents and all the attention and I'm not getting anything. It's hard in that moment to see it as an opportunity, right, for connection and teaching, because you want to be like, shh, stop that, this is so and so's day, we have to focus on them, or we'll deal with this later, instead of going, okay, yes, this is so hard. You've got to feel so jealous that he's getting all the presents and he's getting all the attention. That's so tough. And maybe what we can do is make a list of all the things that you like about his birthday or the presents he's getting, so that we can remember it when it's your birthday. So will you help me? Let's jot some things down now, and then we can think of the other things as we go through the day. So yeah, then you're on to step 3, right? Once you've aware that an emotion is happening, you remind yourself that this is an opportunity for connection and teaching. Now you're trying to be empathic, validate how they're feeling, and kind of go into step 4, labeling the feelings. And I think it's important to try to label those feelings that don't often get labeled, like jealousy, like shame, the ones that we experience all the time that we don't ever name. And I named some of these for my kids for quite a few years before I ever heard the words come out of their mouth. And I remember when Iris was probably 4 or 5, and she said, I feel so jealous of Isaac. And I was so conflicted in that moment, because I wanted to jump up and down and be like, yay, you're jealous. You said you're jealous. But then, of course, I wanted to be empathic to her jealousy. So it can take a while for kids to learn to label the feeling, but they are kind of taking it in. So labeling it, normalizing it, letting them know they're not alone in that. You feel that too. That's okay. You would too if you were in their situation. You felt that a lot. And then you're trying to get into the setting limits while, exploring problem-solving strategies. So I know that you're really mad and frustrated right now, but we can't hit. What else could we do to get these mad feelings out? Or I know that it's hard because you're feeling frustrated or impatient. You want your turn, but we can't grab it. So what else could we do? Those kinds of strategies. And this is all, well and good. It sounds like, sure, I can do this, no problem, until, right, you're rushing out the door to take your kids over to your mom's house, and one of your kids is, crying and laying on the floor, screaming, I don't want to go to grandma's house. I hate grandma. It's hard in those moments, right, to, calm yourself down, kind of work through your steps and say, something like, Oh, I bet you were just so happy here at home, and it's hard to have to stop playing with your games and heading over to grandma's. You wish you could just stay here, and right now you're just mad and sad that you can't do that. Um, and so let's get in the car and we can talk about kind of what to do about those feelings, right? Those, so there's definitely times where I've done it well and times when I haven't. So a really nice way to promote emotion regulation is the kids' books on emotion. And there's so many more now than even when my kids were little. And there's ones that are board books and shorter for, 2-year-olds, and then more advanced for, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. I often give these as birthday presents for little kids. And so I'd recommend kind of checking these out or others that are popular. A common strategy in all of these books is that first they give a lot of examples of the feeling, and that helps kids realize kind of all the different kind of ways that emotion can emerge, and it also helps them know that the emotion is normal and that other people experience it too. Then they typically offer strategies for dealing with that emotion and kind of a reminder that that emotion is temporary. Feelings come and feelings go kind of idea. If you're interested in any of these, you can go onto YouTube, and I love, for example, the Cornelia Maud Spellman books, the When I Feel Angry, When I Feel Jealous. You can search those in YouTube and you'll find someone kind of reading one of those books aloud. And so if you have time, I'd encourage you to do that. So again, when we go with this idea of parents and kids kind of learning emotions, then we can translate that into kind of our real world experiences. And a friend once told me that she had a powerful kind of light bulb moment in one of our interactions. We had both been taking our kids to a play, and we got to the place where the play was supposed to be happening here in town, and we weren't even going together. We just happened to be going to the same play, and it was canceled, and we ran into each other outside the event. And my kids, of course, were little and had been really looking forward to this, and we had kind of two different responses to it. I was basically trying to, in that moment, emotion coach with my kids. I know this is so disappointing. You feel so sad, or you feel so mad. You've been really looking forward to this. And her stance was, oh, okay, play's canceled. Let's not feel any sadness. Let's go get ice cream, kind of distract and let's go get ice cream. And my stance would have been more like, let's name and experience the difficult emotion and then we can go get ice cream. And so that was kind of an interesting experience for her to realize that you didn't have to just be this happy cheerleader all the time, that you could kind of acknowledge and name more difficult emotion. Here's some additional tips from Gottman about emotion coaching. So create a mental map of your child's daily life. So this is, I think of this, and you can do this with friends and with significant others, but this is like knowing what your people's day is like, what your child's day is like. Knowing, for example, if they're in school, what parts of school they like, what parts they dread, who they're happy to see, who gets on their nerves, who their favorite teachers are, favorite classes, where they sit at lunch, who they sit with at lunch. And so then, having kind of more empathy about their experiences ties into kind of putting yourself in their shoes. It's easy with kids or with teens to kind of minimize their issues. So if they're freaking out about their outfit, you can be like, this isn't a big deal, right? But if you put it more into you put yourself in their shoes, you translate it to a situation in the adult world, like you're about to give a major presentation at a conference and you don't have something appropriate to wear, then you can have more empathy. Or if somebody is saying mean things about you at work behind your back, right? Now you can have more empathy for your kids' experiences. We again want to resist that urge to go straight to advice or to fix it. So doing more listening, doing more empowering kind of brainstorming, giving choices, trying to respect wishes even if it's not what your choice would be. And kind of related to that, this is one of my own strategies that I would add in, is just leaving an open door on some of these more difficult conversations about emotions. Like, okay, well, yeah, let's keep talking about it, or I'll keep thinking about it too, or feel free to let me know if it's still bothering you and we can keep brainstorming. Instead, not mocking them for their dreams or fantasies, but helping them kind of put plans into action. Thinking about, when you're in these conversations, what your base of power is. Basically, your base of power, your goal. This is what I think so much of the time in conversations with my kids at all ages. My goal is that they see me as someone who can help them and process things during difficult times. Even if I'm frustrated with my kids, or I'm mad at my kids, or I'm worried that they're failing, I try to keep that goal in mind so I don't end up sounding too kind of punitive or limit setting or off-putting. And then, of course, this last one, this is my hardest one, actually. Avoid siding with the enemy. It's in my nature to want to be really balanced. And if somebody's mad at somebody else, I kind of want to take the other person's side to have kind of a balanced perspective. And my husband has to repeatedly tell me, like, don't back their buddy. You've got to back, or actually what he always says is back your buddy. Like, you've got to take their side, or at least support them a little bit. Kind of, tactfully talk about the other person's perspective without siding with the enemy. Some additional tips for adolescents is to realize that now you're not going to necessarily know everything in their heads, even if maybe you didn't when they were younger either. That they've got some rights to their own private thoughts, different opinions. They may just be in a place where they're kind of down or unhappy, and that you may not be able to do anything about it right then. One of my favorite quotes about kind of this idea of kind of separation and respecting your teenager is from a man named Mike Riera, where he says, "Until this point, you have acted as a manager in your child's life, arranging rides and doctor's appointments, planning outside or weekend activities, helping with and checking on homework. You have stayed closely informed about school life, and you are usually the first person your child seeks out with the big questions. Suddenly, none of this is applicable. Without notification and without consensus, you are fired from this role of manager. Now you must scramble and re-strategize. If you're going to have a meaningful influence in your teenager's life, then you must work your tail off to get rehired as a consultant." And I've definitely had that experience with both of my kids as they went into the teenage years of like, oh yeah, I can't just manage things anymore. I have to kind of earn their respect as a consultant. So related to this, having other people that they can turn to, if they're feeling more comfortable talking to others, or just so they have other options, is useful. And, encouraging their own kind of autonomy and choice, while continuing to be supportive. So that idea of, they're more the captain and you're the crew. So I hope as we reach the end of this, you'll reflect on, why is it that you think parents don't emotion coach? Because I think very few parents do. And if your own parents had used emotion coaching, or if they did, how would that have been for you as a child?